We're back with Managing Your Money, brought to you by Money Sense, Singapore's national financial education program, talking this morning about how to avoid the debt trap. And we're joined in the studio this morning by Mr. Tay Tian Guan. He's Money Sense's representative from the Association of Banks. Mr. Tay, before we left, we were talking about the debt trap and, how to avoid these pitfalls, the greed and all that sort of thing. But once you're in the debt trap, how do you get out? What do you do? What's the first thing you need to do?
Well, I think the first thing to do is to really take stock of the various debts that you have signed on, and then to look at your total financial situation and what is the best way to quickly pare down your debt. As an incentive, we usually look at the one with the highest interest payment. And in this case, it will most likely be your credit cards.
Right.
And exercise the self-control and discipline. It will be painful. I mean, like I say, it's very easy to sign on and get in. But the whole process of getting out, the many cases I've counseled can take years, literally years.
Okay, let's talk about the cases that you've counseled. We can all talk about avoiding the debt trap, and it's still over the heads of many people. Have you had a success story, perhaps, helped someone to really get out of debt and keep out of debt?
Yeah, many cases. I mean, I've been speaking on this topic for many years, even way before the Asian financial crisis. And I vividly remember a friend coming to me and say, TG, thank you for guiding us, telling us. And I never experience what is it like to be totally debt free until I settle my last dollar, and the burden that is lifted is unimaginable. So I think this is something that I think, sad to say, most people got to experience it to
realize.
Know it. But when we tell them, sometimes it not easy.
It doesn't sink in.
Not easy for them to take your kind of advice. You are too conservative. And when I talk about the 4 golden rules, first rule alone, I think will write off all kinds of debts.
Okay, let's talk about the 4 golden rules of borrowing.
Okay, maybe I just give the 4 golden rules, and if we have time, then we will discuss each one of them. The first, I call it the cost versus return analysis. That means your borrowing cost, where are you channeling this money to? And is it going to give you a return that's more than the cost of borrowing?
Sure.
And secondly, is there a certain way of repayment? So you cannot assume that you'll always have this income, especially if it's coming from your job or your career. And then we want to provide for what if kind of situation. What if CPF is cut? What if you are retrenched? What if there's a pay cut? What if interest rate goes up, and so on? And thirdly, is there peace of heart and mind? Can you sleep? If you sign.
Okay.
If you cannot sleep, better to have your sleep than to have your asset or your trip or whatever investment.
I think that would be hard to convince a lot of people.
And then the last, but also to me quite important, if you are married, is there unity, especially between spouses. So this part is also just as important.
And would you like to give our audience lessons from the global tsunami that we've just experienced and in the past as well?
I think, as you can see from the last 2 years, even countries can get into bankruptcy situation.
And still are.
Besides Iceland and Greece and all these European countries. So what more for the man in the street? And usually the first people to be affected in a crisis like this, unexpected, unprecedented, are the people in debt. And the frightening thing is, in this kind of situation, is that a debt will always remain a debt, but your asset can melt. And the worst thing is, your asset can have a value, but there's no buyer. And that's how a lot of these big banks collapse overnight, because they had all these toxic assets that has no value.
If you would like to interact with Mr. Tay, you can do so on Saturday, the 13th of March at 8:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. It's at Suntec Level 2, where Mind Your Money will be heading on the road. Of course, it is You can find out more at www.moneysense.gov.my. SG. We'd like to thank you this morning for your attention, and thanks Mr. Tay for coming in this morning. And I guess we will be talking some more in the following weeks about avoiding the debt trap. Is that insurance policy absolutely necessary? You can always call us on 669-11938 every Tuesday morning. Managing Your Money, brought to you by Money Sense, Singapore's national financial education